Today I'm going to share the best explode tech I've set up in a long time. Baseline, this costs almost nothing to do, and it gives you permanent occultist pops, which most people agree are by far the most satisfying explosions in the game. It's that classic shrine style explosion, monsters screech, chain react, and the whole screen turns into purple explosions. The best part, you can use this tech on any build in the game. In my current Poisonous Concoction of Bouncing League Start setup, with skills increased chaos damage, we're boosting that baseline explosion from 25% of monster life all the way up to 58%. To put that into perspective, Asenath's Gentle Touch only does 3% of monster life, and people still consider those solid gloves. So yeah, this is almost 19 times stronger than Asenath's, and it literally proliferates across the entire screen and even beyond. What's up YouTube? It's your boy AP, and today I'm showing you a piece of tech that's so good and so cheap, I'm not even thinking about swapping off my League starter. Okay, to start things off, there are two ways to set this up. The first one, and the version I personally recommend, uses Beacons of Madness boots, which were recently buffed, plus a simple weapon swap mechanic that breaks the downside of the boots so we only keep the explode upside. This setup costs literally nothing to do, and it doesn't compromise your gear either. Boots are a pretty flexible slot, and in my case, absolutely worth dropping for permanent explode. The second version of this tech doesn't use the boots. It relies on new Foulborn uniques, and setting that up will run you around 25 divines. The advantage here is it's fully automated, so no weapon swapping, no button presses, and I'll briefly cover that at the end of the video for anyone who can afford it. But for now, let's jump in game and look at the budget version, because this is what I am using and what 99% of players should be taking advantage of here. In order to have full uptime on our Chaos Explosions, you're first going to need the Beacon of Madness 2-stone boots, which give us explosions in the first place. Please note there are 3 different variants of the boots, and the Evasion Energy Shield variant is the one that provides explosions. Now these boots give us a button on our hotbar called Embrace Madness, and when that is toggled on, now we have explosions. However, when it's toggled on, it also ramps up some negative downsides which can be quite crippling. And the normal way to compensate for this would be to scale a stat called Debuffs on You Expire Faster. You can get that on the Warp Timepiece. You can get it on a rune graph. There's a bunch of ways to get it. However, this has the big opportunity cost of costing gear slots, which we don't want to do. The other way that they intend you to do it is by simply toggling it off. However, the problem with this is now you can't toggle it on again for quite some time. Those are not permanent explosions. However, I have a solution which doesn't take any gear slots and also does not put the cooldown, and that would be using a weapon swap, which disables the boots. Now, when you swap back, you can immediately turn it back on. And this might sound clunky to some people, but I assure you it is not too bad. The way I have it set up is E on my hotbar turns on the explosions, and now I actually rebinded my W to be weapon swap. So you just tap W and then you can explode again. So it's a really simple thing. Honestly, the debuffs don't feel too bad. You can leave it on for like 10 seconds, then you just tap W and turn it back on. It's permanent explosions. Now the way the weapon swap works is it hinges upon a gem on our boots. It could be any gem you want. I'm using Bone Shatter of Carnage. And the thing to note here is it has a requirement of 117 strength, and my character by default has 117 strength, because my shield is providing me some strength. However, when I weapon swap, the strength drops to 101, which is not enough to support Bone Shatter of Carnage, so the boots just turn off. And you can see this because the boots are now red. And when you turn off your boots, everything in here turns off, so make sure you don't have auras in here. I just have the cast and damage set up, and the portal's doing nothing. That doesn't need to be there. That is how we're able to refresh the boots and have infinite explosions. Now you may be asking, if these boots say they're doing a quarter of monster life as Chaos Explosion, how am I getting the 58% I said in the intro? And actually, I did the math wrong. I'm really getting 62.5% of monster's life as Chaos Explosion, and that's because of an insane synergy with the Light of Meaning for chaos damage. Now this gives me 6% increased chaos damage for every node in the AoE, and the way you scale explosions is either generic increased damage or increased damage of that specific type. So for me, it would be increased chaos damage with the occultist pops. And we have 25 nodes within this area, so 25 times 6 is 150. So you can do the 25% chance to explode times 2.5 to give me 62.5% of monster life is explosion. So yeah, 40% chance to explode, and those explosions doing 62.5% of monster life looks absolutely ridiculous. You'll see it if you join my Twitch stream. The explosions just go on until there's no more monsters close enough to hit. Absolutely nuts for clear. And it really takes this build from an A tier League starter into S++ in my opinion. Now to quickly touch on the expensive way to fully automate the explosions, you could use Foulborn Witchbane, which can roll up to 15% chance to explode. 15% is a lot lower than 40%, but we can supplement that with a large cluster, Unspeakable Gifts, which gives us 10% chance to explode. This is the same explosion as those boots, so it's very, very powerful, and 25% is a lot of explode chance. You do need to curse enemies on your own, and there are a lot of ways to accomplish this. Mark of Submission is a really budget way, but you're likely going to want to spend some money since this is an expensive way to do it. So you would opt for either curse enemies with Despair on hit. These actually can drop Fractured as well, as I believe, and this is a Delve only drop. You could also just Corrupt Gloves until you get cursed enemies with Despair on hit. If you like this sort of content, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really does help me with the YouTube algorithm, and I will be live on Twitch as this goes live. So hope to see you there. All right, peace.